Last save loaded, episode 2.1, dated April 2011. I still remember that first moment when I picked up the game from my local game shop in mid-2005. My previous experiences with Solid Snake had captivated me with awesome characters and lavish cutscenes as the sometimes confusing plot unfolded before my eyes. This time round, Hideo Kojima and Konami had promised to take Snake out of the built-up setting of the first games and put him in a more open environment. This third-person stealth action game is perfectly set in a Cold War-era Soviet rainforest, which allows for greater use of camouflage. This allows the player to sneak through lush green undergrowth, taking out the enemy unnoticed, mission by mission, hoping to complete Snake's objective. That's what would have been ideal, but this is far from what actually happened. At my first attempt, I did enjoy the game up to a point, but something stopped me from getting to the end. As compelled as I was by the gameplay, it seemed like an eternity of cutscenes and dialogue. Before I actually managed to complete the game, I was whisked off to warmer climes and the promise of a sun-soaked adventure working abroad, and Snake was soon forgotten. The great hero whom I'd spent so many hours with in previous games became faded and forgotten, banished to a shelf up high and not played again, until now. Last save loaded, and more specifically my co-host Joey, persuaded me to go back to that forgotten shelf and fire up what turned out to be the most enthralling game of the series to date. Finally, a chance to experience what I had missed so long ago and was eager to finish. I was ready to take the challenge and give it another go, and I wasn't disappointed. It's a game that will stay with me for some time. I found myself smiling, welling up, and in sheer anger and frustration at certain points during my playthrough. But if I can take one thing away with me, it's that I've learned something more about the history of a truly great character, of Snake, this charming man.
And silence through the night. What a thrill. I'm searching and I'm melting to you. What a fear in my heart, but you're so supreme.
Hello and welcome to the Last Save Loaded podcast. I'm GBJoey, and over there is my friend and co-host, Jake Del Toro.
Hello.
How you doing?
I'm fine, thank you, mate. How about yourself?
Not too bad. Just waiting for the Easter holidays to start, basically. I'm pretty tired and pretty knackered of teaching. It's been a long term, and I really
busy term as well, right?
That's right. A lot of exams, and this term is actually calculated at about 14-15 weeks since Christmas. And normally in Spain we have lots of holidays and bank holidays and stuff, but for some reason the government's taken them all off us. There's nothing now until Good Friday. Well, Easter was Thursday before Good Friday, which is the day. But Father's Day here is on the 19th of March. That was a weekend. We have also a couple of festive days as well, that bank holidays, if you like to call them that have also fallen on the weekend. So no rest for the wicked, basically.
No, but over the Easter holidays, I believe you're going to London. You'll be meeting up with a special guest, right?
That's right. Funny you should bring that up. Yeah, I will be. I'll be popping back home to see my folks, my mum and dad, which I've been going to see since September. I haven't seen them since the autumn, and because they were away at Christmas, so going to see them and a few mates, and a certain fella which from up north is coming all the way down to London for a special meet-up and a drink, I believe. I don't know, meal, drink, curry, whatever you like, whatever you fancy. I'm really looking forward to it, to be honest.
Yeah, it'll be good. Finally put a face to the
Awkward
inane
voice.
babble. although in fairness, I have actually seen your face, obviously through Facebook and Skype video.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think it doesn't really. It's not the same, is it?
Oh no, definitely not.
When you meet someone in person and when you meet someone over the internet. Makes a hell of a difference.
Yeah.
But I'm really looking forward to it because it's a nice trip home. It's a much needed trip home, and I need a break from the norm, really. The only good thing about this is that the summer term is quite short. I think it's only about 7 weeks in total.
No,
so
that's not bad, is it?
it'll fly by.
Absolutely. And then how long do you get off over summer?
Well, the summer I normally work during the summer because extra classes and stuff for students who are preparing for Christmas, and then I've got some voiceover work. I've been doing some voiceover, which is one of the reasons as well that I've been really busy. I've been doing some voice recording.
Yeah, I've seen a few of them on Facebook actually.
Yeah, I tend to put them up on various websites because people in England, my mum and dad as well, my dad never ever uses Facebook.
Right.
My mum calls it FaceTube for some reason. But she never ever uses it, and she said, "Oh, what are these videos that you're doing in English?" And of course, the only way that I can really, send her a link and stuff to her portable is via my Facebook page. So what I do is I put it up there anyway, and then just send her the link, and she links in through it because she hasn't got an account. So,
right.
She gets to see it without having to log in, basically.
Good stuff.
And my dad's the same, and all of my friends and people are quite. It's becoming quite popular.
They get to hear your sultry tones back home.
Yeah. Some of the translating's not fantastic because I don't manipulate the text, but if I see there's something a bit Spanglish in there, I tend to try and eliminate it in the recording. But I can't change it too much because they've paid for the translation, and supposedly the person who translated it knows exactly what they were doing.
Absolutely.
Although sometimes it sounds absolutely awful. The verbs are not conjugated correctly. There's one preposition too many. The particle doesn't fit with the phrasal verb. It's horrendous. And especially being a teacher, where you know all the rules of English, it tends to be more and more apparent every time you read the text. But yeah, it's all good fun. I thoroughly enjoy doing it, and well, good. I don't like the sound of my own voice though when the recording's on, and don't like to listen back to it.
No, it's always strange to hear your own voice, isn't it?
It is, especially on this podcast as well, which is not the same eloquent English, clear English that I have to speak.
What do you mean?
Well,
speak for yourself, mate. I speak perfect English.
Yeah, of course you do.
The Queen's own English, I speak.
No, I meant myself. I meant that, that it's not the same as in the recordings where you have to sound much clearer and slowly because foreign people, not necessarily English people, but people from Asia, need to understand it much clearer because it's things for trade fairs and corporate videos, etc., so they need to understand quite a bit.
Yeah.
But that's enough about me. What about you? What have you been up to? Oh, by the way, sorry, I meant to mention as well, I've also... Well, we come into the gaming section in a minute of what you've been playing. We'll do just a brief, I don't know, stint of it. Go on, let me ask you about your daily occurrences. What have you been up to?
Daily occurrences, work. But I've been away for the past few weekends, actually. This weekend, just gone, I was at a wedding over in Middlesbrough.
Well, very nice.
A friend of my mum's who kindly invited us, and we went across, and we had an absolute blast. It's the first sort of big party away from immediate family that my young daughter's been to. She's only 17 months, and she basically stole the show. It was a bit of a shame for the bride, actually, because at night...
I imagine.
Yeah, at night she was just dancing with everybody, really brave. We were quite surprised by it. But during the day, she decided to follow the bride back up the aisle after the ceremony. And we didn't stop her. No. That's all those things that make it all that magical. Absolutely.
That's great. That's fantastic. Well, she takes after her dad, that's for sure. Look.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Dancing and following brides around and stuff like this. I mean,
Oh yeah, you know me too well, obviously. Oh dear. And
Brilliant, I heard you had a bit of a camping adventure as well.
I did. Me and my cousin, we went up to the Galloway Forest Park in Scotland. We were planning to do 2 nights camping in the forest park, and we managed one. We got absolutely piss wet through on the first night, and then decided against the second night. So we just went and had a full English, and then went home.
So
Got
that's
back on
common
the
sense.
PS3.
Brilliant. But no, it's not nice to be sleeping in soggy clothes. You catch a death like that. It's,
Exactly. Yeah. If
not
it had
nice.
been summer and a little bit warmer, perhaps it would have been okay. But it was freezing as well.
I imagine it must be really, really beautiful up there. I've never been up that part of the country. It sounds like it's a wonderful place to go and visit, and some amazing views. And for somebody who's just here right round the corner, well, on the other side of the Spanish side of the Pyrenees, you get loads and loads of really beautiful walking spots up here. For anyone who loves walking, it's just idyllic. It's just amazing, some of the views. I mean, you've got mountains here that are about 800 meters, but you go up to the thousands as well, and they're just absolutely spectacular.
Yeah.
It's good 4 hours, 5 hours trek, depending on your walking speed and how fit you are. But I've been up to some of the 800s, and it is truly magnificent, well worth a visit. Anybody who comes over this way, definitely. Well, you'll be doing one of those when you come over for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. I bet there's some breathtaking views up there.
It's amazing. There's a mountain up here, Kivel, who's it's
Bless you.
absolutely fantastic. It's a fantastic mountain to go up and just admire the whole city, San Sebastian, the bay. You can see the sea for miles. It's just it's awesome on a summer's day, or one of those beautiful bright mornings when it's nice and early and there's a cool breeze. It's a wonderful place to go and just sit up there in silence and just listen to nature. Basically,
Yeah,
it's wonderful.
I can imagine. Right,
Well worth a visit.
Sorry, mate.
Go on. No. That was all I was going to say. It must be beautiful up there. So it's a bit of the country I'd be interested to go and visit.
Oh yeah, it is. It's there's some truly spectacular views up there. It's a lovely part of the world. I've driven through a few times actually the Galloway Forest Park area when I've been out and about with work, but I'd never actually done any walking up there. So it was nice to actually get up there and see a little bit more of it.
Yeah. You really tend to take note of these things really when you just spend time in them, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
It's more of a, it's the same thing here. You see mountains for miles and miles, and the Pyrenees are quite spectacular from a distance. But when you actually get the chance, when you go skiing or you go walking in the spring and in the summer when there's no snow, and you take one of these treks, it's just, it's breathtaking. It's amazing. For lovers. Well, for lovers, that too. For walkers who really adore climbing and going up mountains, down mountains, and all that stuff, it really is a hell of a trip to come over and visit. So,
Yeah.
and anyone listening who does like this sort of thing is more than welcome to come and pay us a visit. Why not?
Absolutely, and I shall be doing that myself, definitely.
Yeah. Well,
Sooner rather than later.
the door is always open. And then
I've heard.
cider houses and something to eat and a bit of Basque culture just to get you all warmed up inside with alcohol and nice friendly people and a bit of the beach and the mountains. You've got everything here. Fantastic. I'm sure you've seen the photographs.
I have, yeah. It looks wonderful.
You were going to say?
I was just going to bring it back to gaming. I believe you wanted to give a mention to someone who you've been playing online with.
Yeah, in the quick episode that we recorded, the one with the 2 yogurt pots under string.
Oh yeah, that one.
That we did before. We managed to rustle that together, should I say, because it was just a quick Sunday evening and we had to get something out. So apologies for the quality, by the way. I forgot to mention, and I sincerely apologise, Mr. Tom Fun. We were talking about gaming on Killzone 3, and I absolutely forgot to give him a shout out for his magnificent and truly magnificent walkthrough and help that he gave me, because he literally helped me through the game. and we finished it together, got a few trophies, and I got to finish Resident Evil 5. Tom, if you're listening, we're going to go back and do this on a higher level, and Sheba is waiting for you. He knows what I mean, and he'll probably be chuckling to himself by now. But we've got to go back and do that again and finish it on a harder level. So when you're ready, buddy. So shout out to Tom Fum.
Excellent. Right then, to carry on with the gaming theme, I think we should talk a little bit about Snake Eater. We'll just take a quick break and we'll come back with our thoughts and experiences.
Lost, saved, loaded.
Okay, welcome back everybody. Right, Snake Eater was released, depending on where you are, it was released in either late 2004 or early 2005. It was directed by Hideo Kojima and developed by Konami Computer Entertainment Japan and Kojima Productions. It's got an overall ranking of 91% on Metacritic, which is classed as universal praise. And GameSpot gave it an 8.7 and gave a few good features and bad features of the game.
Bad features? I'd be interested to see what they are. I mean, I suppose everything's going to have a good side and a bad side.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a couple of these bad points are ones that we'll probably bring up. I know there's one in particular in there that I want to talk about.
Okay.
But the good things they've got is that it's an ultimately satisfying story featuring some memorable characters.
Yeah.
Agreed?
Certainly. I think if you've played the first one right the way through to this, you do feel very, very attached to some of the characters. I particularly mentioned Revolver Ocelot, which it was nice to see him in a sort of fresh light and also much, much younger and much more agile in this episode than the previous one. It is a prequel after all, but you get to see his true potential as a young man, and obviously much, much more handsome and really more presentable, and I think he's a fantastic character.
Yeah, he is
and
brilliant.
Lancelot? That's a nice little round table. Revolver Ocelot, and his voice, which we'll come on to at another point later on, is also fantastic.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was nice to relive those moments again with those characters and see them again in a different light.
Absolutely. We'll be talking a bit more in depth about certain characters a little bit later on. The second good point they've got is there are phenomenal graphics, especially in the cutscenes.
Certainly. This is something I think that is worthy of a mention, because I was actually quite surprised when playing this that the PS2 could do such things as this. There's a scene which we'll talk about later on, which I don't know how it managed it, but it certainly made a really good job of putting it on my screen. It almost felt like it was a PS3 image. It was that clear.
Yeah, the graphics are fantastic.
They are brilliant.
They do hold up, I thought, even by today's standards. Obviously, they're not quite as crisp and clear, but I think they do. This game hasn't aged as badly as some games from that era have.
No, certainly
Definitely not.
No. And I think as well that it does contribute to its longevity, because you get to play this game again, maybe, I don't know, on a further future console, and if it still holds up now, you really you'd know it's from 2004, but you certainly wouldn't feel that you were playing something really blocky and you know, from really, really early. There's nothing wrong with old games. After all, that's the reason we're here.
Yeah.
But I think you really sort of would feel a bit, oh God, you know, I'm so used to playing the Red Dead Redemptions of the world, and I can see that now suddenly, as we said in an earlier podcast with Gun, and you're thinking, what's wrong with the graphics? I don't think Metal Gear goes through that filter.
No,
if you see what I
no,
mean.
I know what you mean, exactly what you mean. Okay,
More
they've
good
also put, there's incredibly good music and sound, again, agreed, and again, we'll talk about that in length later on.
Yeah.
Its open-ended gameplay encourages experimentation. Now, I'm not so sure about, open-ended,
Do you think so?
possibly. I mean, looking at it from back then, I think that statement would probably apply more than it does now. Now you've got games such as Mass Effect and Heavy Rain to a certain extent, where there are, I wouldn't say truly open-ended gameplay experiences, but they're a lot more open-ended than Snake Eater was. I suppose it means that I suppose it could mean that there's a variety of ways you can play it. I mean, I found myself experimenting with how gung-ho I could be, because obviously it's a stealth game. But I just thought to myself, I'm gonna push the AI a little bit here, see what it does if I try and just stand up and shoot my way through a certain section. And I've got to admit, I was killed a lot trying to do that.
Yeah. Imagine, I was going to say, did you survive?
Do you know what? A few of the times I did, if there was any more than say 3 or 4 guards, I'd really struggled and I was pretty quickly taken down. But if there was 2 or 3 guards, I could generally do it. I could generally get the shots off needed to take them down and just crack on.
Yeah, and then do the rest like in UFC or WWF and just wrestle them to the ground or something like that. No, I take your point. It's there are many ways you can approach this. I try to stick to the stealthy way. The way I basically stuck to the way I knew with Metal Gear 1 and the previous 1, 2 and 3. I was sure that the only way to succeed in this game was just by keeping quiet, keeping your head down and eliminating the enemy bit by bit, shooting radios and stuff like this, getting them to... Have you tried to shoot the radio? Did you try that?
Do you know what? I didn't actually do that in this one. I remember doing that in the second one because there was they sort of shake the walkie-talkie as if to say, what the fuck's wrong with this thing?
Yeah, I did it a few times, and they tap it, or they try and think they're like tapping it, and they're trying to read into panic into it because I was too engaged in what I was doing. But from what I could tell, there was an animation of sort of panic of like, oh shit, what do I do now? It was actually quite funny, but not everyone did it. I think it would be a bit repetitive if you got it all the time.
Yeah,
but I think it happened on various occasions that they seemed to panic quite a bit. And it was quite funny watching them feel like, now what do I do?
Yeah. No, I didn't actually. I didn't actually try that in this game. I'd completely forgotten about it, to be honest.
It's a nice little touch, and I think like the old Metal Gear games, and the old bing when you get spotted, and your evasion timer going off at the top of the screen. It all adds those little touches that I remember from the first one. And the way you used to hide behind boxes and over a cardboard box and crawl into a room without being seen. Evidently, I mean, it's obviously you because it's got 2 holes on the side of the cardboard box for you to see out of. So, I mean, that little touch was I think unique and very, very well. It was a very nice little touch to add into the game. And even though this is out in the open, in a thick forest and through the undergrowth, you have this camouflage, which I think really needs to be taken advantage of. Your percentage, for those of you that don't know or do know, there's a percentage meter of how high your camouflage is, so your camouflage level, whether you can be seen or not by the enemy.
Yeah.
So obviously the higher the percentage, the less visible you are. And I think I wanted to take quite a lot of advantage of this because I had soldiers walking directly, no more than inches away from my face, and they couldn't see me.
No.
It was just this little, I don't know, I just wanted to test it and see how it was capable, whether it did the old stuff, in inverted commas. Do you get me?
Yep. No,
And,
I quite enjoyed the camouflage as well. The way you could check, depending on which sort of environment you're in, you could go into your rucksack and change your camouflage to sort of suit your surroundings, and obviously increase that little percentage bar you were talking about.
Yeah. I didn't like, or did you try any of the coloured painted faces? Faces painted like flags as well.
Oh, I didn't actually try any of the flag ones, but I did use some of the face paints as they sort of added.
Yeah.
They didn't add a lot, perhaps 5 or
2%,
10% at the absolute most. But I did use the face paints. I found them quite useful at times.
Yeah, they did help to give you that little bit extra.
Yeah.
But like I was saying again, it was one of those, the old ways, and the way I'd learnt to play it, or the way I thought was best, was in a stealthy way, and I basically stuck through it. I did have a couple of moments when I panicked myself and found myself maybe overwhelmed by too many soldiers at once. But I think you can get by that if you just run and hide for a bit.
Yeah, that's it.
So the evasion meter goes down. There is one thing that I didn't particularly... I don't know if you're going to come onto this in a bit, but I thought I'd get a bit ahead of myself here and say that there were scenes, for example, in the first scene, without spoiling too much, when you meet Revolver, Ocelot, for the first time, basically before the intro begins, the music, there were a few moments there where I wish I could have taken part in some of those fights, because they were truly spectacular. The animations were brilliant, and I felt myself a bit cheated.
Yeah.
You know, I felt cheated by the game, because I think it would have been better if the player was able to do it rather than the machine, if you like, or the cutscene.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
I don't know whether you felt the same, but there was some fantastic animation, and take nothing away from it, because it's truly brilliant and spectacular to watch. But I think the gamer intervention there, the gamer, the actual pad in your hand needs to contribute something to that moment.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Even if it was just sort of a cute...
Even if it's a QTE.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
That would just sort of pull you into the game a little bit more, wouldn't it? I was just going to move on to a couple of bad points that the GameSpot review had pointed out, and they were that there's too much exposition and the story gets off to a slow start, and there's very little gameplay at first.
Yeah.
And that second point was something that I wanted to bring up. But what I'm going to do first, I'm just going to read a brief synopsis of the story, just for anyone who's forgotten what the actual plot was or hasn't actually played it yet.
Okay.
Is familiar with. I'm going to read this from the wiki, so the Wikipedia, so bear with me. Best Queen's English voice now. You ready for this?
Do it in Spanish accent, go on.
Metal Gear Solid 3 is...
Oh, you turned Jamaican there for a second. It was Spanish, I said.
Cheeky swine. Right, here goes. Metal Gear Solid 3 is set during the Cold War in 1964, where a CIA agent, codenamed Naked Snake, is sent into the jungles of the USSR, aided over radio by Major Zero, paramedic, and his former mentor, the Boss. His mission is to rescue a defecting Soviet scientist named Sokolov, who is secretly developing an advanced nuclear-equipped tank called the Shagohod. The mission goes...
Great name, by the way.
Say again, sorry?
Great name, by the way.
Oh yeah, the Shagohod, it's a fantastic name, that.
Sorry, go on.
The mission goes smoothly until the Boss defects and provides a new benefactor, Colonel Volgin, with 2 Davy Crockett miniature nuclear shells. Sokolov is captured by a Cobra unit, and Snake is heavily injured in combat by the Boss, allowing Volgin and his cohorts to escape with Sokolov. Volgin detonates one of the nuclear shells to cover up its theft, which is subsequently blamed on the Boss. Mm-hmm. Having detected the US aircraft which deployed Snake flying over Soviet soil, the Soviet Union declares the United States responsible for the nuclear attack, tipping both nations to the edge of a nuclear war. In a secret conference between the US President Lyndon Johnson and Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev, a deal is hatched to prove the US's innocence and restore peace. The United States agrees to stop Volgin's renegade faction, destroy the stolen Shagohod, and eliminate the American defector, the Boss. Mm-hmm. So, how did you find the story? What did you make of the narrative throughout the game?
Well, it's true what you said. It does get off to a rather slow start, and I was a bit frustrated because the cutscenes were, I think, excessively long. Obviously, that needs to give you a bit of background into how the story pans out, because you need the information. Like I said, it left me sitting on the sofa thinking, what am I doing here? Why am I watching this? And pushing the button and getting quite frustrated, to be honest, because you do nothing for most of the time. Really, when the story gets going, it's the opposite end of the scale. You just, I found it really emotional, really powerful, and right the way to the end with one of my favourite scenes, which I'll talk about later, close to tears, because it is very. The impact of the game is there from when things start to kick off, basically. I mean, without giving too much away, and you do try and follow the story as best as possible. And to be honest, Metal Gear Solid stories are not the best to follow. The plot's not brilliant.
No, they can be quite confusing at times. Particularly, do you know what? To be honest, I didn't find this one particularly confusing. I think it was quite straightforward. But I remember thinking, playing the first and second ones, I remember thinking I couldn't keep up with the plot at some points. It was I didn't know what the hell was going on.
I was exactly the same. I was really, really frustrated because I didn't know what was happening and I was stuck, and I wanted to follow the story. I wanted to know what happened to Solid Snake. I wanted to know how he became who he was, and where all this panic and fighting between countries and hatred, if you like, came from, and why this clan of no good doers, or this horrible group of people, were after him. And it didn't fill in any of the gaps. And so when I got to 4 and I started playing the game, I was looking forward to a bit of, knowing that it was a prequel, looking forward to the gaps that filled in, looking forward to the bits that filled in those gaps.
Right, yeah.
And I think it did a very good job, because the story is very coherent. It's very good. It's very well explained. And as you say, it's not difficult to follow.
No.
So I was quite pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, I mean, as I say, I did enjoy the story, but I'd agree with one of the points that GameSpot said, or two, that the story gets off to a slow start and there's very little gameplay at first.
Yeah.
And I found,
Yeah.
the same as you, I was quite frustrated by the fact that there was these great scenes going on and all I could do was watch. I wanted to sort of be a part of the action. And some of the animations with Ocelot, particularly with his revolver tricks, were brilliant, and I wanted to get in there and kick the shit out of him, basically, but I couldn't do it, and it was a little bit frustrating. And I think that's perhaps one of the reasons that I didn't complete it the first time I played it, is because you get the first section where you're trying to rescue Sokolov from, I think it's an abandoned factory. There's not too much gameplay, and it's all stealth-based till you get to where Sokolov is, and there doesn't have to be any shooting at all.
No, and the thing is as well, the path there is not particularly clear either, so you spend most of your time going backwards or forwards.
Yeah, trying to find the way.
Exactly, in the wrong direction,
Yeah.
and you're loading maps that you've just come from.
Yeah.
I think that needed to be a little bit better signposted. It wasn't very clear which way to go, and I know maybe it's just me and the old eyes and stuff like this, but I thought that it was a bit confusing, and you really, really had to be on the ball to be able to know which direction, which way you came from, if there was a path. Yeah, I find myself stuck up against basically a tree trying to walk forward because I was, I don't know, a millimetre off the track, and it wouldn't load the next stage.
No.
And it was really frustrating because you're thinking, this is going to pull me out of the story now, because I'm trying to find a way round this bloody map.
Yeah, well, that's the point I was getting onto. I'd say that the lack of sort of action in the first section, and then the amount of cutscenes when you actually get to your objective, it just sort of really pulled me out of the game. And I mean, I know it explains the story, and you do need that exposition to explain what's going on, but I just felt that once you get to Sokolov and you think the story's about to really kick off and everything's going to sort of gain momentum from there, it sort of slows down slightly because you are sort of drawn out of the actual controlling of the game, and all you can do is watch. And I think the cutscenes from then on, up until there's a great title sequence, we'll come on to that in a minute, up until then I think there's probably 15-20 minutes at least of cutscenes, which admittedly all the cutscenes are really well done. They're well voiced, well animated, and
well presented.
Yeah, they are.
Certainly.
They're fantastic to watch, but you just, at times I got really frustrated thinking, I want to be playing here. Because and I know you feel the same way, that you get sort of limited game time, and you want to play that, you want to use that time to actually play rather than be watching cutscenes sometimes.
Well, using that point you've just made, to give you an example, on more than one night I used to finish, I normally finish, I don't play during the week, but unless I've got a game on the go like this. If for example, I come home and I've just had dinner and there's nothing on Spanish TV, because, to be honest, Spanish TV is not the best in the world. It's absolutely cack. And so you think, I've got about half an hour before I go to bed, I want to sit down. Now, on more than one occasion, I've sat here in front of my computer, my PS2, and I have just sat here watching a cutscene and haven't been able to go to bed, because it's one cutscene, play for 5 minutes, another cutscene, and find myself here, instead of going to bed at 11 o'clock, find myself going to bed at 12 with only having played 10 minutes. And, I just think, well, what's the point? I want to be able to be participating in some of this action. I don't want to be sitting here. The truth be said, that later on it does return that favour to you, because the later Well, the later stages of the game are actually quite good because you actually do something and you participate. But it's just the first bit.
It does sort of balance itself out eventually. I think towards the end of the game, although there are cutscenes, there is a lot more actual playing time between the cutscenes. So yeah.
What other negative points did they? Because I can really think of one, but I don't want to go off on a rant unless you read it out. I know what you're thinking. I know who you know who I'm thinking of as well.
Would that be paramedic? I mean, what can be said? What can be said? I mean, paramedic is used to save your games. You call her up on the radio, and I basically want to call her, save my game, and then get back into the game. And I don't need the sort of extra conversation that she brings along.
Extra conversation, fucking hell. That's saying something. Gosh, extra conversation. You say that again. Yeah, and the most frustrating part about it is that she offers nothing. She might make a funny little comment. She might say something worthwhile. I don't know, because half of the time I just pushed X and didn't bother reading what she said.
No, I was the same. I quite often found myself skipping those conversations. Although, in fairness, I do tend to skip a lot of those conversations because with the cutscenes, I do just want to get through them.
Yeah, you do, and she doesn't. You just sit there, and a lot of the time, again, you have limited time to sit and play this game, and then you have to listen to her waffle, because that's the only really thing that I can think of as best describe it. Because maybe it's just me, and I'm getting the wrong end of the stick here, because she maybe does have something important to say, and I've completely missed the point. Well, hands up and apologies to anyone who thinks that I did it that way.
I don't think she ever does say anything important, does she?
I don't know. I didn't stop to listen, to be honest.
No, I'm sure there are people who do find that quite funny and interesting, but
certainly, yeah.
I'm the same as you. I'm not really keen on those bits.
Well, no. I think that could have been 20 minutes less, and maybe another 10 euros less off the game. I don't know. It just made it a bit more sensible without just save my game, end of story.
That's it.
Next point, because I'll get angry otherwise.
Well, they were the only negative points that the review brought up.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I mean, and they're
minor.
They are minor quibbles, but they're the ones that I was thinking of.
Yeah. I think you play the game. The balance of the game is very good, because I think for anybody who loves Metal Gear Solid, and I'm the first to put my hand up, because since the first one came out on the PS1, I've thoroughly enjoyed every single episode that Hideo Kojima has given us the joy of playing, and I would never ever say anything negative about it. And this is really not a negative criticism to say never do it again. I mean, if there are people that like that, then great. Maybe that's what they expect from this sort of game. But certainly the characters, the plot, the music, the voices, and Metal Gear as a whole package is truly spectacular. And I haven't played 4 yet, but I'm really looking forward to setting aside some time and getting into it, because it's something that I really want to spend quite a bit of time on.
No, I'd agree. I'm probably going to leave it a few months, I think, before I start. I'm a little bit Metal Geared out at the moment, but I'm definitely looking forward to playing it. But yeah,
I mean, this is a game you can play again as well.
Oh yeah, I can definitely see myself playing it again in the future.
Certainly.
Yeah, like you say, they are minor quibbles, but they're there, and they do need a mention. There was one other thing that I found a little bit strange, and it just felt wrong. And there's a character called Eva who's introduced not long after the titles. It's probably an hour or two into the game, perhaps 2 hours into the game, and she's an agent that you're supposed to be meeting. Well, in fact, you're supposed to be meeting someone called Adam, but Eva turns up. And I found the introduction that was given to her was a little bit strange, because it seemed a little bit pushed a little bit too far over the top. And I know that the characters are quite often over the top in Metal Gear Solid. With
they are exaggerated.
Yeah, they are, which is fine, and I enjoy that. But I just felt there was too much emphasis placed on the sort of sexuality of the character, I found. and it was just a little bit strange. It didn't quite sit right. It didn't feel in keeping with the rest of the game. Because there's a feature in it where during certain cutscenes, a little icon will flash in the top right-hand corner.
Yeah, the R1 shoulder
sort of
button.
prompting you to press the R1 button, which will then give you Snake's point of view. And when she first arrives and jumps off a motorbike, doing about 50 somersaults in midair, she lands, unzips her top, and basically gets her tits out. And it was just a bit strange.
You press R1 and you get a screen full of tits.
Exactly, yeah. You press when you press it, that's exactly what he's looking at. Snake's directly focused on her
well, he is a bloke.
chesticles.
I mean, he's not going to be looking at the bike, is he? Well, maybe he is. I don't know.
Well, probably not. But I don't know. It just I didn't hate it, but it just felt it didn't feel quite right in line with the rest of the game. It felt sort of strange.
I understand what you mean. Yeah, I understand what you mean, but I don't know. Maybe that's a bit of a parody in the whole equation. Maybe that's giving it a bit of I don't know, comical edge. It depends how you take it.
Yeah, I think.
I don't know.
To be honest, it seemed a little bit too overdone to be parody. It was. I mean, it reminded me slightly of, strangely enough, Bayonetta, because everything is sort of overdone in Bayonetta, but that is, I'd say, sort of slightly a bit more leaning towards parody. And it was fine in that. Say again?
How would you have changed it? What would you have done? What effect would you have substituted it for, perhaps? Imagine you had the power to change. How would you have reflected Eva?
I would have just made that scene less about Eva's tits, to be honest. Not that I've got anything against tits. I quite like a good pair, but it just seemed a little strange for the game.
Yeah. She is all in quite tight leather as well.
Yeah, she is. And I mean, for the rest of the game, I absolutely loved her character. I think she's fantastic.
Yeah, she's great. She's good. She contributes to quite a bit as well. She's very good. She's a fantastic help.
She is. We just got off on the wrong foot, I think.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Maybe that's Kojima's way of giving us a little bit of
titillation,
sexuality, or a bit of tit.
Yeah, he's obviously a breast man. Yeah. You see, I remember from the second game, actually, when you were hiding in certain lockers, there'd be posters of women inside the lockers.
Yeah.
With their,
topless women, that's true. They were a bit fuzzy,
yeah,
though,
they were a little bit back in the day.
Yeah. Not that I looked in great detail, but they didn't look fantastic.
Oh, I did.
Right then, shall we take a break and come back with a bit more info?
Yeah, we'll take a break and come back, and we'll talk a bit more about a few specific characters we encountered.
Back in a minute.
Last save loaded.
Okay, Jake, one of the things that I think we need to talk about, and be warned that we're trying to avoid spoilers here, because I think we don't want to spoil the game for anyone who hasn't played it, but if you have, then bear with us, because you'll probably know what we're talking about, and you might want to comment on what we say, but we don't want to spoil it for those that haven't played the game. So if you don't want to listen to this section, forward, I don't know, what would you say? About 10, 15 minutes longer? 20?
Probably longer, I'd say. Give it half an hour.
Half an hour, okay.
Yep.
Because it's we're going to be talking about things that might spoil it for you, and it's not a good idea. No,
we're going to talk specifically about certain boss fights, and we might give certain things away.
Yeah.
But there were a couple of bosses that you particularly wanted to mention, weren't there?
Yeah. Well, the first one I need to talk about is the one that made me stop playing this game the first time through, on the first playthrough. I put this on the shelf because of this guy. The Fear.
I am the Fear. That bolt is coated in the venom of the Brazilian wandering spider. Soon a most exquisite pain will engulf your entire body. Your limbs will be paralyzed. Your lungs cease to draw breath. Eventually, your heart will stop beating.
To give you a bit of info without giving too much away, he's a guy who has a fantastic ability of camouflaging himself in the woods with a predator-type wobbly sort of image effect. Yeah, if that makes sense.
Yeah, he's near invisible, isn't he?
Yeah, and he's very, very difficult to see. And the first time round, he fires a bow and arrow. He fires at you and moves rather quickly. Now, when I played this the first time round, I found it, well, practically near impossible to beat him, and I eventually got really fed up and chucked the game, fucked it in the bin, basically, as they say in other places, to coin the phrase. Anyway, I was really frustrated because every time... Now, I think I need to say that one of the reasons I kept dying and losing a lot of energy is that going to the menu where you heal yourself, you have your outline and you have like an x-ray image and you can see where you've been injured, and you have to stop every now and then to replenish your energy and pull out the arrows or the affected areas. And I found myself completely covered in arrows and pulling these out, but by the time I got back into the game from the menu, I was covered in arrows again. And it was really frustrating because my energy bar or my health bar or whatever you want to call it was really, really low, and this rotten bastard would keep on firing arrows at me and jumping around, and I thought, well, I can't be sitting here for another week because I don't have time. I want to finish the game and I need to basically dispatch this guy as quickly as possible. So I went and got a little bit of a hand, a little bit of help, and I went over to a forum and I read a few notes without too many spoilers just on how to defeat the fear. And the trick is that when he fires at you, you shoot him, his energy goes down, and he comes down to the ground, to a ground level where you're standing, to eat whatever's on the ground, so a snake or whatever. And in the previous level to that, there are lots of poisonous frogs and snakes which you can carry and throw or leave down as bait on the ground. So when he comes down from the tree, he picks up the poisonous food, eats it, and then really you just have to shoot him a couple of times, and he's dead. I didn't twig the first time, and I found myself going back to an earlier save after reading the walkthrough, if you like, with all this information on it. So it was quite frustrating and very, very difficult the first time around, but much easier with a little cheat. And it's these little things that help you defeat the bosses. Now, did you have any trouble like this? Was it similar to you? Was it easier? Was it more difficult? Did you have to ask for help as well?
Do you know, I was quite wary about coming up to this character because of what you'd said in the intro episode.
Yeah.
But when I actually got there and faced him, I was probably fighting him for about 3 minutes. I think I just got really lucky in that every which way I seemed to turn, I could see where his arrows were coming from, so I could sort of see where he was and get a few good rounds off with the shotgun. And I found that 5 or 6 shots with my shotgun and he was dead.
Yeah.
So I didn't struggle with him at all. Although I was expecting to.
Yeah, he was a very good character, but I think my fucking aiming was crap anyway. So
I know that from Red Dead. I play alongside Red Dead with you and get shot enough times because of your bad aiming.
Well, yeah, that too, and Killzone. But I think, I was like you say, scared that I would fall into the same trap again.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons I cheated a bit and went for help. I mean, there's nothing wrong with asking for a bit of help if you find that you can't defeat a boss, but
there's nothing worse than not being able to progress, is there? So if there's something there that will help you, then why not?
Yeah, and the reason is that I really wanted to finish the game because I knew that there was something waiting for me at the end, something spectacular, and I knew that it couldn't go unseen, and that I had to finish this. And really, with the little time I had, and in the evenings, and watching cutscenes again and again and again, I really had to find a way of getting through this, and I didn't want to fall into the same trap, as I say. So maybe there's nothing wrong with getting a little bit of help from your friends, as they say.
Absolutely.
But it's good. It's good because I didn't miss anything out in the character, and all credit to the creators because they did a fantastic job. He's a fantastic character, to be honest, and he does the voice is very good, and he plays his role as a villain with extreme perfection. He's brilliant, even though I hate it, and he's the reason I left the game the first time. But,
Yeah.
I'm pleased that I got through it. The other guy that caused me problems, which also deserves a mention, is the Pain. For those of you, just to jog your memory, he's quite a chubby bloke with lots of hornets flying around him, and quite vicious, quite nasty as well.
Yeah, he sends certain hornets after you, doesn't he? And they,
Yeah.
like the Fear's arrows, they embed themselves in your skin, and you've got to sort of go into that surgery option,
the
haven't you? And
medical menu, the healing
yeah.
menu.
Do you know, I thought that was quite a good idea, actually, but I just felt the implementation of it wasn't great, because, again, as with some of the cutscenes, it sort of pulls you out of the story a little bit.
Yeah.
Because you're sort of in the middle of a fight or a high, your adrenaline's pumping from being in an action sequence, then you've got to pull yourself out of that, go into this menu, and then spend, 5 minutes healing yourself.
Yeah. And
then
the fight's gone.
Exactly, you've sort of, your adrenaline levels have dropped slightly, and you're not quite as geared up as you were to the fight, and it can sort of draw you out of it a little bit. And it's a good idea. I just felt the implementation wasn't fantastic for that. But anyway, mate, sorry, you were talking about the Pain.
No, the Pain. I mean, his boss fight is quite spectacular as well. I don't know how you found it. How did you actually defeat him? Because he kept sending hornets after me, and I had to do it a couple of times to get him. Not as bad as Magruder in Gun, but hard work.
Do you know? Again, I found him relatively easy. There was I think I perhaps died
Are
once.
you playing on an easier level than me? Am I playing
I
on
must
some
have been.
fucking legendary or something?
I found that I could get away from the hornets by diving into the water, and then once I climbed back up onto the one of the platforms, because you're in sort of a cave, aren't you?
Yeah.
And there's it's filled with there's sort of a lake pool in there full of water and a few sort of jutting out rocks that you can get onto. And I found that once I got onto one of those rocks and could get a few shots with the shotgun, again, I made light work of
he
him.
runs after you as well. He runs round.
Yeah, he does.
And it's getting a good vantage point where you can get a shot off in time and then jump back into the water, which I eventually worked out. His weakness. When he was running around, just trying to get him in the back of the head or in his back or in the back of his legs or somewhere. But all this swarm of hornets were just coming towards me, and I just kept getting stung before I was able to get away in time. So it was it took a few efforts to get through. But
again, like with the Fear, I think I got quite lucky when I was fighting him in that, again, every platform I seemed to climb on, he was in front of me. And not doing a great deal when I was pulling out my shotgun.
Yeah, it's not as easy as you, because I play on Legendary. So.
Oh right, yeah. Well, there we go.
That's clear. Fat chance. No, he's also a fantastic character as well. He has a great voice. Again, go back to the same thing again. I find that trying to say unique things about each of the characters is actually quite difficult in this game, because all of them are very good. Unlike Gun, each one of them had a different personality that you could pick pros and cons from. Voices were better than other characters. They had their animation or the way they presented themselves was completely different. But here, all of them are unique, all of them are spectacular, and all of them really, really do make you, they're breathtaking, they're brilliant, they're all very good, even though they do cause you a bit of jip, but apart from that, they do have... I know you had a bit of a problem with one...
I did. The guy that I had a real problem fighting was... he's called the Fury, and you meet him sort of... It's probably about halfway through the game, maybe slightly a bit further on than halfway, and I found that I really struggled with him, because he's a big guy. He's got a jetpack, and I can't remember now if he's got the ability to manipulate fire or whether he's got a flamethrower, but either way he's spitting flames at you. And I found that I just couldn't get out of the way of the flames quick enough. And like you with the Fear, I got myself onto GameFAQs and got a walkthrough to see how someone else had done it.
Yeah,
And
well, I was the opposite. I think I got a few lucky shots away, and he was gone. I actually was quite surprised that I dispatched him quicker than I think. I think it was just luck basically, because I don't think it was skill in any way. I'm not that skillful, and like I said, my aiming is cack. So I think I was just lucky enough and pulled the trigger at the right time and managed to get him a couple of shots. Managed to get a couple of shots away quickly enough, and he fell. And well, I mean, lucky, I suppose. Beginner's luck.
Yeah,
I've
well,
never played that section before.
the way the walkthrough explained to do it was that the layout of that level is that there's sort of several corridors running vertically down towards the screen that you can either run up and down them, obviously, or there's sort of horizontal corridors as well that you can run through. So it's a bit like a crisscross of corridors, for want of a better word. And the idea was in the walkthrough that you go to the very top of the screen and look down each one using the first person view until you see him walking towards you, and then you use the sniper rifle to get 3 shots on him, and which will drop him slightly, and then he'll get straight back up and fly at you with the jetpack.
Right.
And in the time that he's flying at you, it explained to get out your shotgun and get a couple of shots with the shotgun, and I found that I wasn't quick enough. And again, it came down to luck at the end of the day.
It is just luck sometimes.
He was there with his back to me a couple of times when I was looking for him, and I managed to get some shots with that trusty shotgun and take him down. And I can't tell you how relieved I was when I actually killed him.
Yeah, I could hear the sigh of relief over here.
I thought I was going to be there for hours fighting this guy. What an absolute
swearing
cunt he was. Oh my god.
Say that again?
I said, what an absolute cunt he was.
I can hear the nastiness and the hatred in your voice.
But again, like you've said with the Fear, fantastic character. I did enjoy seeing him. It was just the actual act of killing him I struggled with. But that's one of the things that makes the game enjoyable. It is a challenge at times.
Yeah, it does. It does test
yourself.
you.
Yeah, it does. It's sort of pushing yourself through those hard bits. That's what you get the reward from, or at least that's what I find in games anyway.
Yeah, you do feel that sometimes, even though if you persevere and you get rewarded quite handsomely sometimes, and when you really think that, whether it's a trophy or whether it's a sigh of relief from all the way from Cumbria to here, you can suddenly see that you've done something worthwhile, and you're moving on in the story. And Metal Gear, as always has something to offer. I found that some of the cutscenes that after killing bosses were actually quite good. They were spectacularly made and presented, and that they did have a little key, a little help, a little something of a reward for you. Did you explore other parts and other things as well? I mean, the map itself, like I said before, you could get lost, but did you explore?
Do you know what? I didn't find myself exploring that much, because I don't. Obviously, it's not sort of an open world game in the same, at all really. And particularly when you're coming into this on the back of a game like Gun, which is, not a massive open world as we explained in the Gun episode, but it is an open world. But this is sort of, I've always viewed the Metal Gear series as sort of very linear, and I never tend to stray off the beaten track, so to speak, because I sort of know my objective, and I want to get there and get the mission done, basically.
Yeah, it does. It does. I don't think any game with Metal Gear on it is going to disappoint anyone. Those of you who haven't played, it's strongly recommended.
Absolutely.
That you grab it, because it is certainly worth a playthrough.
Definitely.
And, I think, like I said earlier, Metal Gear 4 is going to be a real treat, but I don't think I can cope with it now. I'm
as I said, I'm a little bit burnt out on Metal Gear just at the moment. Going back to what you were saying about exploring, the one time I did find myself sort of exploring the map was during the second boss fight that I wanted to talk about, actually.
Yeah.
And that was when you meet a guy called The End.
Do you hear me, Snake? I am the End. I am here to send you to your ultimate fate. You'll make a fine quarry for my final hunt.
He's
A BDI guy.
yeah, he's sort of an old sniper that's on his last legs. And
His
there's
last
actually
eyes as well.
yeah, there's actually I found out after playing the game there's actually a couple of ways you can avoid the fight with the end.
Is there?
And yeah, just before you get to the stage where he's at, there's a cutscene where he's in his wheelchair on it's sort of a dock outside a warehouse, and you're spying on them from afar.
Yeah.
Just after you've
Yeah,
seen that cutscene, if you take your sniper rifle out and shoot him, you avoid the boss fight.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, and
Do you know what? I was looking at him through the sniper and I was thinking, what's he doing in that? Shall I have a shot? I was actually thinking of shooting out his tyres.
yeah, just to see what happened.
Just to see whether he'd get up and walk away or something, or I don't know, change the wheel or do something. I actually had that thought had occurred to me. I thought, I wonder if I shoot out his tyres when I get them from here. And I thought, nah, Joe, don't be a prat. Go on, carry on, keep going. And
Yeah, but if you shoot him, he disappears from the game. He's not in it, and instead of him, there's a Cobra unit waiting for you. Where he
There's a
will
what?
be. There's a Cobra unit waiting for you.
Oh.
Of all.
Well, anyway, how did you dispatch this fella?
Well, just before I get onto that, the second way you can avoid the fight is if you save your game halfway through the fight, and then come back a real world week later and load the game up. He's died of old age, and you don't have to fight him.
No, isn't Kojima brilliant?
That is absolutely fantastic. Another way around that is resetting the internal clock on your PlayStation and then obviously loading it up.
Fantastic.
But, the guy's died of old age. No, I'd never thought of that, but what a fantastic touch that is.
Brilliant. He thinks of everything, this guy. Oh, awesome.
I was really quite impressed when I read that.
Oh, no, I am now. You've got me. I'm gobsmacked. I just want to go back and play it and see if it works now.
Yeah, I want to do that. I want to get back into it and see if it, and just to see what happens when you do it.
I might make a note of that on a little piece of paper inside the metal box and just see if I remember it next time. I might make a note of that. Actually.
Yeah,
that's well worth seeing.
Absolutely. And after if you do either of those methods to get rid of him, apparently the radio call between Snake and Major... Is it Major Tom? It is Major Tom, isn't it?
Yeah, Major Tom.
Snake sort of expresses remorse for the fact that he
shot out his tyres.
Yeah. That he owes him a new wheelchair.
Yeah.
No, that he didn't kill him in the right way. That he would have wanted to kill him himself, and sort of express his regret that it didn't end the way he would have liked it to.
Yeah. I heard somebody say there's a part... I heard it on a different podcast actually, which I didn't actually notice this either, but now you're talking about little things that appear. You know, there's a scene further up, which we're going to talk about later on, because he's one of your highlights of the game. There's a scene with some fog, and some, let's say, characters appear in the fog as ghosts.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah? Well, if you look closely, supposedly, if you look at the characters, they actually hold their hands where they were wounded. So if you shoot one in the bollocks, he's going to have his hand on his bollocks.
Oh, right.
Or if you shoot him in the head, he's going to put his hand in the head. No, I didn't notice that, and that's another thing I'm going to make a note of, because I think it's well worth watching. You know, I shot the tyres off the edges, or the edges. What did you say? What his name was?
The End.
The End. Sorry, not the Edge. That's you too. Great guitarist, by the way. I shot the tyres off the End's wheelchair. I mean, is he going to appear as a in that part, holding his tyres, or
either
with
that
a
or
puncture repair kit or something?
Probably.
I don't
Running
know.
his inner tube through a bowl of water to find out where the puncture is.
Through the stream that you walk through, you'll see him just sit on the side of the stream, just going through and just blowing bubbles out of an inner tube.
That'd be great.
That'd be fantastic, with his thermos flask and beady eyes.
Yeah. Right, anyway.
Enough joking.
Back to the end.
Yeah,
I found this was my favourite actual boss fight in the game, I think, because it was set sort of over 3 different maps, and the idea is that you're trying to find the End, this sniper who's a bit like the Fear. Is incredibly well camouflaged, not actually invisible like the Fear is, but he's very, very hard to spot. And I found I just found it really sort of exciting, is probably the right word. running around these separate part of the maps, or not running, sneaking around these separate part of the maps, trying to find this guy and get the shots away needed to kill him.
It is a bit of a snipe fest, isn't it? I mean,
It is.
For anyone who's a bit of a snipe whore,
It-
it's going to be a hell of a level to do.
Yeah, it was a bit like I think I mentioned this in the intro podcast we did, actually, the battle you do with, I think she was called Sniper Wolf in the first game, where you sort
Sniper
of
Wolf,
sniping
that's
at each other. I suppose in a similar way to the first game, where your hands are shaking and you take, is it diazepam, to stop your hands from shaking in the
That's right.
first game, so you can get a clear shot. The ends, I don't think the bullets that hit you, I think the tranquilizer darts, and they basically make your adrenaline bar plummet and your hands start shaking, so you've got to sort of go into that surgery menu and heal yourself to get a steady aim again. It did pull me out of the boss fight slightly, as I said, but I really enjoyed fighting the end, and the way I ended up doing it was using the thermal goggles.
Ah, right. I didn't think of that.
Yeah,
because
if you equip them, you can see him. You can just see him a little bit clearer. He sort of appears as a red dot rather than trying to spot him amongst the foliage, and it just made it a little bit easier.
You don't really... oh, well, I didn't, anyway, think of using them during the day. I was using them to see, when there were soldiers behind areas that the foliage and stuff, you could see that there was a body. Is that a soldier? You put them on and you would sort of see the image, or the thermal image. But I never ever thought of using it with him.
No,
I basically sat still and just slowly, inch by inch, moved around the screen, and the minute I saw, because he moves quite regularly, and he moves quite a bit as well. He's not quietest and stillest of bosses. He edges slightly, and you think, oh, right there, boom, and I would just get a shot away, and he would come back with a comment like, oh, you've got me, or like this, or something or other, to say that he'd been here. So it took me a while, though, mind you. It wasn't easy.
No, it was quite time consuming, that, but as I say, I really enjoyed doing it. It was definitely one of my favourite sections of the game, that fight.
Yeah, it's very good. You have to have a lot of patience as well in your hands, and you really got to look closely. I've got a small monitor, so I don't have much of a big screen, but I can look and I can see just every inch of movement is just great, because it's much easier to see than a bigger screen, of course. You can cover more of the surface, and so I think that helped me quite a bit to see any tiny little inches of movement. And it made it a little bit easier. But like you say, and like I say, even, it is time consuming. You really have to sit there still. No good. Anybody else that you think is worth a mention?
Well, moving slightly away from the boss fights, there are a couple more characters. The first one being Eva, who I mentioned briefly before, and I think the relationship between her and Snake throughout the games, I found it quite funny, the fact that she seems to be throwing herself at Snake, and Snake's basically not interested. He's sort of only got eyes for the mission, so to speak, and she's constantly sort of thrusting her tits in his face. Not quite as obviously as in the first scene, but she's definitely trying to get him to succumb to her charms. And well, does he? Doesn't he? You'll have to play it to find out. But the relationship between them, I actually found it quite funny and sweet.
The boss is the person that I want to mention. I think she makes a magnificent entrance. The first scene on the bridge, and you just see how powerful she is.
Yeah, absolutely.
And how glorious she's just. Her voice, her presence, the message that she gets across to you, the way she's just very imposing. And I think I was actually quite pleased to see that this was a very interesting character that had suddenly come up. Apart from Volgin, who's standing alongside her, I think she made him feel like 2 inches tall, because
even though she's obviously physically smaller, her sort of presence is
much greater.
Sort of dwarfs his, even though he has got a very imposing presence himself. I mean, we'll come on to him in a minute.
Yeah. But she also impressed me quite a bit, and she was very good as a character to play through.
Yeah.
And
absolutely. We'll probably talk a little bit more about her later on, I think.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah.
But Volgin, as you were mentioning them, he reminded me of the character in Gun who you meet, who Hollister was his name. I couldn't think of his name then. Hollister.
Bear dead on his back.
Yeah, in the fact that he's a massive guy, really physically imposing, and he's got that sort of gravelly, raspy voice, which just again lends that air of evil, I suppose, to him. And he's a very, very sadistic character throughout the game.
He's seen my face. We can't let him live. If Khrushchev finds out about this, we're finished.
He's a very intimidating character, and he was one, a bit like Hoodoo Brown in the first one, and Hollister in, not the first one, in Gun, I should say, who once I'd seen him on screen, I was thinking, bollocks, I'm going to have to fight this guy, and he is going to be a bastard. And lo and behold, he was.
Yeah, you were right, yeah.
The first time you meet him, he's not actually that difficult to subdue, but then you meet him again later on, and this was another boss fight that I really struggled with. And, but yeah, I definitely wanted to mention Volgin.
Yeah. His voice is good as well.
It again.
Another great contribution. It's a shame we didn't write down. Well, my notes here. I should have written down the names of the characters. They appear on the screen, and apart from Snake and a few of the others, which you can see. I thought Sokolov had a fantastic English accent, despite being Russian.
Yeah.
And his English was fantastic.
It was
really absolutely perfect.
Better than mine.
Well, no, different names. But yeah, I thought he was spectacularly brilliant for somebody who's been living in Russia for so long. But well, anyway, it's part of translation, I suppose. Either way, everyone's voiced fantastically, and all the characters contribute a great deal to moving the story along.
Absolutely.
So,
there was one other character that I wanted to mention, and he's not actually in this game, and that's Raiden, or Raiden, however you pronounce it, from the second game, who, although he isn't in it, he is referenced quite a lot. Yeah. And because of the sort of negative backlash towards him from the second game, there's a few sort of asides that are quite funny, which sort of point to him.
Yeah.
Specifically, there's a character whose identity you steal to gain access to somewhere later on, and when you steal his clothes, he's the spitting image of Raiden, basically, and he's wearing a nice thong underneath his uniform, which just sort of a humorous nod to the sort of androgynous nature of that character from the second game. And I found that was
I had
very
a chuckle
funny
as well. Yeah, it's shame it didn't have an American flag or something on it, because it would have made it look like more.
Well, it had had sort of a lightning streak, didn't it? And there was sort of hints in that section that he's actually Volgin's gay lover, but
but Volgin wears the same under his massive leather coat or leather jacket or whatever.
We won't go into that.
No, that's for another podcast.
Okay, Joe. So let me ask you, what did you think of the overall look of the game? Particularly the graphics and the presentation of the game. What did you make of it?
I thought it was quite nice. I did enjoy it. It's a Metal Gear Solid game. Nothing can really go wrong with anything like that, because the presentation in those games is absolutely fantastic. I did enjoy the cutscenes, what I saw of them anyway, and they did
when they
really
weren't too long.
The capacity. I mean, apart from them being too long, they showed. I think they showed a PS2 how capable it is of producing images like that, and I think it actually rendered the images much better than I expected in some of the cutscenes, because they're brilliantly, marvellously done.
Yeah, they are.
And I never expected that of a machine like, with all its limitations and that, but because the PS2 evidently is not the same as a PS3, so
apparently not.
I think it's done itself justice, but then those games do look wonderful in the cutscenes. There's lots of other things as well that I can talk about with the characters. Maybe some of them, they didn't look as rigid or as blocky as in other games, and they look quite nice, quite rounded. And there was a bit of texture popping and stuff every now and then. I don't know if you noticed that as well. There was a bit of popping here and there.
Yeah,
maybe a bit of strange shapes and shades coming here, but the palette's green and brown and grey, so it's not really much to choose from there.
No, I did get a little bit of texture popping as well, and a few jagged edges, but not too many. But overall, I'd completely agree. I think it still looks fantastic even today, I think.
Yeah,
I mean,
it does,
Gun, I thought Gun was good when we were playing through that, but then loading Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater up, it just, that pisses all over Gun, really.
It does, and I think maybe Gun could have maybe used some of the tricks in Metal Gear. Some of the cutscenes in Gun are okay, but they're nothing like the game itself. It's completely much more. The landscapes in Gun are very arid, and it is desert. It's a completely different terrain. But
it is.
There's a slight. I don't know how to describe it really, but there's no comparison because a lot of the time the textures in Gun are all sandy, orangey colours, and this is with Metal Gear Solid. It's much more green, as I say. And again, there's a bit of a contrast there, but it's much more gratifying when you play Metal Gear Solid. You can see the textures, you can see the leaves, you can see the undergrowth, everything around you.
Yeah.
And when you move in close up, it's all really well done.
Yeah.
I was impressed, to be honest.
Yeah, so was I. I really like the art style of Metal Gear Solid, and I mean, I love it in the games, but I really love, just to take it slightly away from the graphics in the game, but I really love the box art on the Metal Gear Solid games.
Yeah.
I think the box art, the art style they use for the box art is fantastic. I absolutely love it.
There's I've got, as you probably know, I mentioned in the episode, I've got the metal case. The shiny one.
Yep.
And it's the box art is fantastic. It looks such a. I think one of the reasons that I bought and spent that extra money was because it caught my eye immediately. And I thought, I've got to have this. This is a game worth having as a collector's game. It's something that I'm going to treasure and I'm going to play again for sure.
Yeah.
And way before even we arrived to doing it, I said loaded all those years ago, it was something that would look fantastic on the shelf in my games collection. I would be proud. I would be proud to show everyone, and it's well worth spending extra money because these games, they don't have an expiry date. You can play Metal Gear Solid again and really experience the same thing.
Absolutely. Well, do you know, when I do eventually come over to visit you, just check that metal box is still there when I've left.
Oh, right, okay, it will. It'll have a tag on it or something in the alarm as you go through the door, because we've got one of those big airport arcs outside. So any games that go past it will bleep anyway, so I don't know, no. You're welcome to it if you want to borrow it, that's fine.
Well, I've got a copy of the game, but I'll leave you the disc. I'll just take the case and put my disc in that case.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Give you a shit old plasticky copy, why not?
Yeah.
Yeah, anyway, there's other things as well. Your overall impression of the game, what let me ask you this, and it might be a bit of I don't know, quite a hard question. What do you take away from this experience of playing Metal Gear Solid for the second or third time, I believe?
I've got to say I enjoyed it a lot more playing through this time, and I think the reason is that the first time I played it, I got up to the point that I was talking about before, where I wasn't really completely engaged with the story because I felt I was being pulled out of it a little bit too much. And the first time I played, I only got as far as the initial sort of Bondi and title sequence.
Yeah.
And I never went back to it after that. And I think I was a little bit frustrated with the lack of actual action and proper playtime, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. The thing we mentioned earlier about cutscenes and things as well being interrupting the game time.
Absolutely, but because I forced myself past that bit. I mean, I did struggle initially with it, getting back into it, as I've said, but once I'd passed that point and I was completely engaged in the story, I just found it so compelling that I was really, really looking forward to putting my PlayStation 2 on when I had time. And it just sort of captured me this time. I think I must have just been in the right frame of mind to play it this time, whereas last time I obviously wasn't. How about yourself? How does your playthrough this time compare to your experience of your first playthrough of it, would you say?
Well, I think I was maybe perhaps the first half of the game I was a bit more savvy to what was going on.
Yeah.
That maybe initial naivety of trying to go and steaming into guards and seeing what who would come off worse off of the two of us.
Yeah.
Was not so apparent. I think I took things a lot easier. I thought things through, and apart from running to the bog for a pee between cutscenes, or while cutscenes were on, not between them, because there was a bit of gameplay to do. But apart from that, and being brought out of the game more often than not, I still enjoy, as you say, coming back to it and saying, "Oh, great! There's another bit for me to play. There's another bit that I'm really going to sit down and pay attention to." And I was completely captivated, much more so than I was when I first played this, and I was much younger, and I enjoyed it a different way, perhaps. But this is the beauty of this sort of thing, that you go back to it and you experience it the second time in a different way, and that's one of the reasons I think initially that we're here, to relive those moments again, and to try and come back with something a little more, I don't know, with a different experience, with a better experience.
Yeah, I just found it overall a more rich experience this time. As I say, I think it's probably because I got past that sort of hump point that I didn't get past the first time.
Well,
And
with the fear with me, I think that was where I cramped up in this Metal Gear race, and I really couldn't go any further because I didn't have... And okay, I asked for help, but I think it was needed. It's something I should have done because I've been ignoring this game for so long, and maybe because there are other titles that were far more interesting, but I think I shouldn't have left it on the shelf this long. I feel that for anybody who's not played it or given up on it, really go and fish it out and put it into the PS3 ASAP, because it's an experience well worth living. One of my moments of the game later on, and I'll explain why I didn't expect it, and I think I wouldn't have maybe appreciated it as much then as I did now.
Yeah. No.
There are certain factors. Maybe it's just age. I'm older now. I maybe have more experience than I did then when I initially played the game, of life in general, or maybe just my way of thinking is different.
Yeah,
I don't know what the cause may be. Difficult to explain it, I guess.
No, I'd agree with you about leaving it on the shelf so long. I'm gutted I've left it so long, to be honest. It's something, as I've said on one of the previous episodes, it's a game that I've always had there, and it's always been staring me in the face, sort of goading me into play it, but I've never actually stuck it in before, and having played through it now, I can't believe I've never played it before.
It is. It's awesome. It's amazing. It's full of emotion, power. It's got everything. It really has, and it's a roller coaster ride from through all the emotions, and without giving any spoilers away. It up to the last moment, you were just I was completely captivated, and I'd love to go back and play it again at some point in the future. Maybe not so soon, but at some point maybe have another go and relive that experience again, and maybe, who knows, I might get a completely different experience yet again.
Yeah.
Third time through. Who knows?
Yeah, I think I'm the same. I think I'll probably play it again in, as you say, not in the near future, but it'll definitely be going back in the machine at some point.
Yeah, for sure. It's well worth it. I think these type of games never have an expiry date, as I said earlier, and it's just reliving those moments again and getting different emotions or the same emotions.
Absolutely. I think one of the things that sort of underpins the emotion running through the game is the score, and I don't think we've mentioned the score actually, so I'll just mention it briefly now. And I think we were talking just before we started recording about the actual Metal Gear Solid theme, not the Snake Eater title sequence theme, but the actual Metal Gear theme, and we were saying how sort of evocative it is, and it's just a fantastic piece of music.
It's great. Yeah, it's very snakish, if that's a word.
Yeah, it's sort of iconic, I suppose, a bit like Snake's voice and the character of Snake. It's
Metal Gear. It's that rusty old. You just know he's an old rat, and he knows every trick in the book. Actually, coincidentally, I don't know whether it affected you the same way, but when the music played the first time, and you get the din 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 going, just the hairs on the back of the neck just went straight up, and I thought, Snake, he's somewhere. I can see him. I can feel that emotion. You can see him on the screen way before that moment ever comes, but you just have this he's here. It's there. It's happening.
Yeah, you get that buzz.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It's hard to put into words. I can hardly explain it, but it's that feeling of I know he's there.
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, it's difficult for me to put all these emotions into something, in a podcast where I can explain it and put it into plain English. But I think you know exactly what I mean, and anybody who's played the game knows what I mean. Hopefully, the same experience will happen when the new people or who are listening to this and want to go back to it and didn't finish it with them. They'll get the same feeling as well.
Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah. How did the score captivate you? Because there's lots of brilliant music in there, and really emotional music as well.
There is. It's, as I said before, it just sort of it underpins the emotion that's wrought out from the story, because there are certain elements to the story, particularly the sort of plotline involving the boss, who was Snake's old mentor, and her sort of betrayal.
Yeah. She's a very powerful character, isn't she?
Yeah, she is. She's a fantastic character. Yeah, the music, I think, is used really well in those scenes, and it just sort of brings that sort of extra little bit of emotion from particularly scenes towards the end. Again, not giving anything in particular away, but there are scenes towards the end that
very powerful.
They are, and I was a little bit more emotional than I had been throughout the rest of the game. Let's put it that way. I wasn't quite in floods of tears, but yeah, I did get quite emotional.
Are we talking about? Right, you see if we're on the same wavelength here, because I'm thinking of a moment.
Right, should we just say
in a field of blossoms?
Should we? Yes, that'll do.
Yes, let's say that.
We can just say that without giving any spoiler warnings. That'll do.
Do you know? I was sat in front of the television, and when the camera pans out, let's say, with that moment, I could feel just my hands were shaking.
Was that the DualShock vibrating?
No. It was just my hands shaking from shitting myself. No, I was in this lock, just completely locked up, and I was holding the controller, and I could feel it just shaking in my hands, and I felt this just wave of really, really powerful emotion come through, because I thought, oh, what's going to happen now? And without saying what does happen, I did feel myself well up a little bit, because it is a very, very... The music adds to it, as we were saying a moment ago.
Yeah, it definitely does.
That really brings home... It's amazing how well all these factors combine together to bring that magical moment, that pinnacle of I can't explain it without giving anything away.
No, it's tricky, isn't it?
It's very tricky, but you understand me. You know that moment, and I think you feel the same.
I do, definitely.
No, it's very hard to get that emotion in the game across, and they've done it fantastically well. And I think the music, my hat off to the score.
It's a guy called Harry Gregson Williams that does the score. He's done it for all. I know he's definitely done it for all three of the main games. I'm pretty sure he probably did it for the PSP games as well. But he's a film composer as well. He's done quite a few big films. The only one that's springing into my mind at the moment is Deja Vu with Denzel Washington. I know he definitely did that one. But he's done quite a few, and I think he's a fantastic composer.
Brilliant.
Hats off to him.
Yeah, totally. He's made the game come alive and really brought across that feeling, that emotion.
Absolutely, and in the way that the John Barry James Bond theme sort of that embodies the spirit of Bond, I think.
Yeah.
I think the same can be said from the Metal Gear Solid theme tune. It sort of embodies that sort of the feeling of a Metal Gear Solid game. It's probably classical conditioning, because I associate that music with the game as you do the Bond theme with the Bond films, but it just sort of, as soon as you hear it, it's Metal Gear, and
you certainly do.
That's it.
And makes the hairs in the back of my neck stand up when I hear the old din, and I think, wow. Well, that's one of the reasons it's in the podcast, I think.
Absolutely.
It's well worth a mention.
Definitely.
Anything else you want to add or ask about score, graphics, anything like that?
No, nothing I can think of the score and graphics. One other thing that I wanted to or to ask you before we bring it to a close is,
By the way,
aside from the longish cutscenes, what would you say was your major negative of the game?
my major negative. We are talking about a Metal Gear Solid game here, and there's very little wrong. I think Kojima does a fantastic score. The music is brilliant, as we said a moment ago. The graphics are brilliant, as we also mentioned. I cannot find anything negative, really, apart from, like you say, the cutscenes and Paramedic. She got on my tits a bit. She was a bit annoying.
She goes on a bit, doesn't she?
She does. It's meaningless as well, but it contributes nothing to the story. And you just feel like we said, just give him a save and end it there. Just shut up.
Yeah.
Shut the fuck up. Just let me save and finish. End the story. But she goes on and on and on and on and on, and you really feel tempted to listen, just in case she does say something. But when you've heard her 3, 4, 5 times, you just push the X button.
Yeah,
and
keep
because
skipping
she's not going to give anything away, and she's not going to tell you anything.
No.
And I think it's the same thing with, as we mentioned with Metal Gear, the previous Metal Gear, with Jack and Rose and Titanic, and it really.
Yeah, you just don't. You don't need to hear it, do you? I mean, I'm sure there's people who probably enjoy that, but
certainly,
I fall into the same camp that you do. It sort of irritates me a little bit. I just want to save my game and get back into the action as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
And it just sort of takes away from that a little bit, doesn't it?
Yeah, I would say that's, for me, is the negative point, the low light of all this. Her contributions, not that I listen to all of them, but from what I gather, I think it's a bit random.
Yeah.
I've got very little negative points to say apart from that, because I don't have anything. I love the game and always will. And always will. Yes, I love the game very much, and it is a Metal Gear Solid game that needs playthrough in the future again. And I won't stop saying it because it's true.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm the same. There's very little I can find wrong with the game, and I think, to be honest, the only major negative that I can think of that I haven't mentioned already is, as you say, Paramedic. Those little. Yeah. I mean, a few of them caught my eye because they mentioned things that I was interested in. I think I mentioned before one about where she mentions the James Bond films.
Yeah.
And
Waterfall and
and Jason and the Argonauts as well. So I did read through those ones, but any of the other ones I literally just didn't read them. I just skipped through them as quickly as possible.
No, I didn't bother. I got fed up after the third. Just didn't go on.
No.
That doesn't mean you shouldn't stay and listen if you like that sort of thing, and you feel that it's necessary just to add to enjoyment. Then by all means. But,
absolutely.
It's just something that if I have to say something negative, then that would be it. For argument's sake, more than anything.
Yep.
Not because it contributes or removes anything from the game in any way.
No. Yeah. So I think that about wraps it up. But as we said with Gun, what I'd like to do with the when we do a main game podcast is finish with our highlights of the game.
Okay.
Have you got anything that springs to mind that would be your highlight of your playthrough?
I have to say, I'll use the same reference again, the Blossom part.
Yes.
The bit that I'm getting a bit tongue-tied here, and I really don't want to give anything away.
Just leave it at those two words, if you like, the Blossom.
No, I want to give a reason why, I think.
Okay.
It's a very, very, very powerful, emotional, and fantastic moment, all in the same package, and one that should never be missed.
No.
If you've played up to that point and beyond, then I think this game stays with you forever, and that's one of the things that will make me remember it, that moment. I've got that image in my head, and it's well worth playing. Case closed, that's it. I'm not going to say any more. Case closed. That's without a doubt, the Blossom moment.
Good stuff.
Blossom, wasn't she a teenager on TV?
Blossom, yeah, she was. Blossom, I used to watch that.
Did you?
I did.
Show my age.
Anyway, my highlight I would go with is
Yeah.
I didn't actually.
Sorry, I was going to say, hang on. Jay, what's the best moment of the game and your highlight of the game, in your view?
I would go with it's a boss fight that I didn't actually mention when we were talking specifically about boss fights, and I didn't mention it because I knew I'd want to talk about it as my highlight of the game.
Yeah.
And it's when you meet a guy called the Sorrow, who
Is that the penultimate boss?
No.
Or before that?
He's just as you come. He is towards the end of the game, but he's not. He's not the penultimate boss because that's Volgin. It's. I think you fight him before you get to Volgin.
Oh yeah. Okay.
But anyway,
Yeah.
spoiler warning ahoy! If you don't want to hear about the Sorrow, skip forward a couple of minutes. But in the same way you were talking about then, in the way that the Blossom scene, we'll call it, wrung the emotion from you. I felt the same when I was doing this. You can't really call it a boss battle because you don't really fight him. The Sorrow. You're basically walking upstream along a river, following this guy, the Sorrow, and it's hinted that he lives between the living world and the afterlife. And basically, you're following him upstream, and coming down towards you is everything and everyone that you've killed during the game. And I just found it really affecting. It was, it just sort of brought home sort of the effect that my actions had throughout the game, and it stopped me in my tracks a little bit and just made me think about how I'd played it. And I know
Did you feel guilt that all these people
you know
that you?
I did a little bit. It was. I know they're only sprites at the end of the day and polygons. Sorry, and
No, but they're not really, are they? Because they've got a character, and you don't see them. They're not day-to-day people. That would be horrendous. You do feel for them.
Yeah, it sort of reminded me of a scene in Austin Powers where it shows the henchman's family being told that the henchman had died, and his son crying and his wife being upset. It sort of reminded me a little bit of that, but not quite as tongue in cheek. But yeah, I found
you
it.
can imagine the Fear's wife, can't you?
Oh God,
she was right old hag, didn't she? A bulldog chewing a wasp. Go on.
Yeah, it just sort of really, I found it really affecting, that scene, and really quite powerful and well done. I hadn't actually heard about it before I played it, so the sort of the impact of it was quite strong, I found, and I just thought it was really well done, and it just sort of
murkiness.
Say again, sorry.
Of it all, it's the murkiness of it all as well.
Yeah,
the colour, the screen.
Yeah, it's all foggy, and you can't. You can't really see too far ahead. You can't see far behind you if you look behind you. And it's the fact that these spirits or ghosts of the people that you've killed are reaching out to you as you're walking past it. And it stopped me in my tracks, and I was sort of just spellbound by it. Yeah, I think that's the best word, spellbound. It just completely captivated me, and I just thought it was wonderfully done.
Yeah, no, also too, I did feel a bit of guilt as well, as I said, just the consequences, the collateral damage, let's call it, of everything that I've done throughout the game and how I've destroyed these characters. And like you say, they're polygons and nothing else, but you do have this, you certainly have a conscience, like myself, and you probably felt that it was a bit extreme what Snake was doing. And I'm sure Snake would have been, if you consider him in the same light as the character that you are in effect controlling him, he might have had that experience as well at that moment as well.
Absolutely. And just as a side note, I also like the fact that you find out why he wears an eye patch.
Yeah.
That was good.
Yeah. It's a nice surprise.
I won't say anything more about that. We'll leave it at that.
No, that's it.
Okay, right, so I think that pretty much wraps up Snake Eater. So what we'll do is we'll take a quick break, and then we'll come back with contact details and how you can get in touch with us.
Certainly. Okay, see you in a bit. Okay, welcome back, and time to wrap this one up and give out the contact details of where you can all contact us. We have an email, lastsaveloaded@hotmail.co.uk. If you have any comments, questions, ideas, maybe there's a game that you think we should play through and comment on and maybe perhaps experience. Maybe something we haven't played before that you feel needs a second playthrough or a third or a fourth, whatever. It can be PS2, PS1, and I think, Jake, you're going to be going full retro, but I think you give the green light on that. But PS2, PS1 titles we can do, right?
Yep, as the full playthrough, PS1, PS2, and I think we'll say very early PS3 as well. Basically, anything over 2 years old we'll consider.
Okay. So if there's anything that you feel maybe perhaps we should play and comment on, do drop us a line. You have our email address. I'll repeat that for you. It's lastsaveloaded, all one word, @hotmail.co.uk. Failing that, or maybe perhaps you want to contact us on a personal level, we have Twitter accounts, which are... Okay.
We do. The actual podcast Twitter account is @lastsaveloaded. And then our personal accounts, mine is @Jake Del Toro, which is JakeDelToro. What about that? Spelt it right.
Fantastic.
Ding,
no
dang,
W at the end.
that'll do. No, not a W in sight.
No, fantastic. Well,
And what's yours, Twitter, Joe?
Mine is @GBJoey71. We also have a Facebook account, page? What do you call it? A Facebook.
It's a Facebook group. Basically, if you search for Last Save Loaded in Facebook, you'll find it.
Yeah. Well, you can also, you're more than welcome to drop us a line in there if you feel that maybe the others are too personal, or I don't know, whatever you feel is easiest for you. And also, the last contact is through the Game Adult forum. There's a thread that does say Last Save Loaded on there, which Ratso and Zib have very kindly let us borrow and given to us for a while. So if you feel that maybe perhaps you want to write something a bit long-winded and maybe doesn't, I don't know, your choice, feel free to contact us about anything you want to say, positive or negative. It's all constructive. It will help us to make the show better for you. It'll also give us a chance to improve things and make things better for everybody, which we look forward to doing anyway, because we are still relatively young. But hey,
we're getting there.
Slowly. We'll try and I don't know.
Our aim is to improve with every podcast we do. Basically, I'd say.
Yeah. Why not? Anyway, like I said, thank you very much to everybody. You got any shout-outs, Jake? Jake? Whoop. Have you got any shout-outs, Jake?
We've had a couple of iTunes reviews in the UK.
Oh.
I've not actually checked Spain. I'll check the Spanish site. I'll check the Spanish iTunes for the next intro cast. But the two, we've had two English iTunes reviews, and they're from Alexander Tom and Awesome Wells.
Fantastic.
So thanks, guys. Very much appreciated.
Certainly. It's all every little helps, they say.
Absolutely. So now that's us done with Snake Eater, and we're going to move on to our next game, and we're not going to announce what it is just yet. We'll do that in the intro podcast, but I will leave a little teaser right at the very end of this one. The last 10-20 seconds, there'll be a little teaser just as a hint. Yeah. Just to give a hint as to what the next game's going to be.
I'm seriously looking forward to doing the intro on this, and I really want to play through this game. I've been looking forward to it for ages.
Yeah, I have as well. It's a game that I've actually finished in the past. Although it's a long game, I did finish it quite quickly because I was just completely compelled by it. It was, I'd say...
Stop. Let's save that for the intro episode. Let's keep people at bay here.
Okay, all I'll say is that it's one of my favourite PS2 games of all time.
Yeah, mine too. It's a cracking game. So we'll leave it at that.
Yes.
Nothing else. You'll have to listen to the intro episode, which will be out, I don't know. I just want to also mention that Easter holidays are coming up, and we might not be recording until May, probably, the next episode, because I'm going to be away. I'm going back to England. But there may be a surprise recording where Jake and I at the moment are negotiating a meet-up at some point. So We'll see how it goes, right?
Yep, definitely.
Right then. Well, I've been GBJoey Calvo.
And I have been Jake Del Toro. Thank you, everybody, for listening.
See you next time.
Happy gaming, everybody.
Happy Easter, if I don't see you before.
Absolutely.
Happy gaming.
Happy gaming and happy Easter.
What a thrill with darkness and silence through the night. What a thrill. I'm searching and I'm melting to you. What a fear in my heart, but you're so supreme. I give my life not for honor, but for you. In my time, there'll be no one else. Crime is the way I fly to you. I'm still in a dream, snake eater.
Ah, yes. Now, I'm not one to give in to popular sentiment, but as head of the school, I've been asked to introduce you to our glorious institution, Bulworth Academy.